Hey there, welcome back to Brad's Lab. So today we're going to be talking about advanced dating techniques, the thing I promised to you last week, and I'm going to keep my promises because that's the kind of person I am. So before we actually get into the video, I know that this topic isn't exactly the most engaging, most thrilling, and I've tried my hardest to make it more engaging. But I figured, you know what, why not just give you a little bit extra so that maybe you'll stay and watch the rest of the video. So periodically through the video, I'm going to take and post photos of myself. And you're going to take and be able to laugh at these photos. These are photos that not many people have ever seen. So let's go ahead and start off with this one here. I have no idea how old I am in this photo, but there's one of two things happening here. Either I'm getting ready to run for Congress, or I'm trying out to be a Who in the next Grinch movie. So last week we talked about relative dating, not that kind. This week we're going to be talking about absolute dating. But when I say absolute dating, it's not a absolute. It doesn't give us an exact date for the object that we're trying to date. It only gives us a plus or minus to it. So that plus or minus can be, 100 years, 40 years, but there's always going to be a plus or minus. So it's not absolute. Why we named it absolute and not approximate, I don't know, because science, we don't really like to name things the way we should. We're either way too literal or we're way too vague. So why don't we get an exact date on something when we do date it? I'm gonna say a dirty word, and please don't shut the video off, but it's chemistry. Because of chemistry. Nothing good has ever come from that's a lie. There's a lot of good things that have come from chemistry. But the use of chemistry is very important for when we're actually trying to radiocarbon date something, otherwise known as carbon-14 dating. We have to take and use all of those scientific advances that, chemists have made and try to work in harmony with them. So unfortunately, we do have to take and talk about another boring thing. And I know what you're thinking. You've already brought up chemistry. This video can't get any more boring than that. And you will be surprised. I can make this so much more boring. But I'm not going to. I'm actually going to try to keep this entertaining for you. So let's talk about how carbon is formed. Simply enough, carbon comes down from the atmosphere. Plants, eat the sunlight. And then animals eat the plants. And we eat the plants and animals. And when we consume plants or animals, we actually consume the carbon that they've consumed. And as long as we are continuously taking and eating, we are continuing to bring carbon into our bodies. The moment that we die, we stop producing carbon. And that's actually how we can date carbon-14. Okay, congratulations, you made it through that part. Very proud of you. So here's another one. Yet again, don't know how old I am. It was after Pokemon Yellow came out, because what I'm holding in my hand is that little Pikachu walking device thing. And between the Canadian tuxedo and those glasses, it is amazing that I've ever actually managed to take and find a woman. Carbon-14 is an unstable isotope, meaning that it actually has a half-life, it'll break down. We're going to get more into that. But it is slightly radioactive. Now, before you get too alarmed by that, it's not enough to do any damage. And you couldn't avoid it anyway. You have to eat and you have to drink. And by doing those two things, you have to take in carbon-14. But that banana you're eating right now, possibly, I don't know. I don't know your life. You might be eating a banana. It actually has a slight radioactivity to it as well. So as I've mentioned already, when we die, we stop taking in carbon-14. And luckily for us, carbon-14 actually breaks down at a pretty consistent rate. Every 5,730 years, plus or minus 40 years, it has a half-life, so half of it dies, becomes nitrogen-14, and the other half goes on for another 5,730 years, plus or minus 40, until it dies, and so on, and so on, and so on. And eventually, that's actually what we use. As you all already know, we can't see atoms with our own eyes. If we could, carbon-14 dating would be a lot easier. So we've had to develop ways to actually count carbon. And we've done this through several different ways that involve chemistry. And I'm not going to go into all of them because I don't want to make this video any more boring than it already is. And just by bringing chemistry up, I mean, come on. What word brings up more boredom than that one right there? So we've developed technology, and there's 3 different ways, but we're only going to talk about one way because it's newer, it's more advanced, It's, it's what technology does. As time progresses, technology progresses, and things become more accurate. So today we're going to talk about accelerator mass spectrometry, or AMS for short. I'm going to call it that because accelerator mass spectrometry is a huge mouthful of words. AMS is the most recent technology we have for radiocarbon dating. It's more sophisticated than the other two, and it's new. And unfortunately, I don't have any way to show you. I don't have any props or anything like that for a couple reasons. One, I can't fit one in this studio. I call it a studio just to make myself feel better, into this basement. And two, I don't have the money to be able to afford one. So if you're a rich benefactor looking to take and give somebody an AMS, then look no further than here. But we're going to try our best to actually describe what's going on and make this as engaging as possible. I know it's already been kind of hard to get to this point in the video, and I thank you for that. So let's see if we can get through this last part. So how does all of this actually help us understand just how old something is? So when we're in the field, we're going to take a sample of something, say a bone. We're going to wrap that up, and we're going to send it into the lab where they have the AMS. And from there, they're going to do a bunch of chemistry to it. They're going to wash it to make sure that there's no contaminants on it. Then they're going to take a sample, all that fun stuff. But what happens with the machine? That's what you want to know. All right, the machine's the most interesting part of this whole thing. Well, they're going to take that sample that we sent them, and they're going to turn it into graphite. How? I don't know. Chemistry. They're going to take those and put them into disc. They take the disc, they put them into a chamber where they ionize the graphite. This separates the carbon from the graphite, and then they take and they electrocute it, and they shoot it down a tunnel, and they use magnetic fields to actually help keep it on track and where it's supposed to be going. The carbon will eventually make its way to this tube area, and in this new tube, it's going to take and get hit by 3 million volts of electricity. This is going to launch it down another tube close to the speed of light. So, think of Sonic getting up out of bed in the morning after a chili dog. And once it gets to the end of this tube, it's going to get hit by another magnet. This magnet's going to bend the carbon. Now, there's 3 different types of carbon that they're dealing with here. Carbon-12, carbon-13, and carbon-14. We're only after carbon-14, but we have to have carbon-12 and 13 to actually understand how old something is. So once it gets bent around this tube, the carbon-12 and the carbon-13 are actually going to branch off and go into another tube where they're going to be counted. But the carbon-14 still has to be counted. So once carbon-14 is split off from its siblings, where does it go? Well, it ends up in a tank, and this tank is full of isobutane gas. Once it collides with the isobutane, it actually lets off a little bit of energy. And every single time that there's a collision, it's counted. So once we've got the number of collisions that happen from the isobutane and the carbon-14 colliding, we can then compare them against the carbon-12 and the carbon-13. And carbon-12 and 13 are both stable isotopes, meaning that they don't break down. So we can actually take and from there determine how old something is within plus or minus of a specific time period. Hey, you made it through another boring segment. Congratulations. As promised, here's another photo. I am a weebelo. That's about all I know. I'm not sure how old I was yet again. I'm not good with my age. I honestly don't know how old I am right now. But that's the look of a kid that's hoping his ears will be able to make him fly away from that photo. So just as with all things in life, there are pros and there are cons to AMS dating something. Pro, it only takes about 20 milligrams of something to actually be able to get a date from it. So we don't actually have to destroy that much of a sample. But that's the con. You actually have to destroy part of a sample to be able to get this date. So if you have something that is kind of rare or very small, this isn't the dating technique you want to use. Pro, it is very fast. You can usually get results back within about 24 hours or less. But with that speed, there comes a con. It's expensive. And it's not a method that you're going to want to use for every single thing you're going to date. And the final con is, yeah, there's more cons than pros, but we still use it. The con itself is you can only date something back to about 50,000 years. Remember, carbon-14 has a half-life. Eventually, carbon-14 will completely break down and it will become nitrogen-14. And because of that, not everything can be carbon-14 dated. So that's one of the major drawbacks to this, and we're going to have to use other techniques that we're going to use to take and date these items. So let's go ahead and get into those techniques. I'm not going to do that. I can't do that right now. let's just wrap this video up. Hey, you're almost done with the video. You've made it this far, so we're on to the last photo that you're gonna get to see of me, in this video at least, until I make another boring video and I have to find some more photos of myself. This one, yet again, I'm sorry, I don't know how old I was, but I remember very distinctly that I was terrified that fish was gonna bite my thumb off, and that's the reason I'm making this face. I know that fish wasn't gonna bite my thumb off, but try telling that to, I don't know, 8-year-old me. I don't know. Who knows how old I was? If you know, please let me know in the comments. If you made it this far in the video, I do appreciate that. Give yourself a pat on the back. I would do it, but I'm not there. And if I was, this might be a little creepy. And, you know, that's neither here nor there. I do want to thank chemists. They've given us a lot of great stuff. They have a lot of great stuff to continue giving us. If you want to become a chemist, please go out there, become a chemist. We do need chemists. Just because I don't fully understand what they do doesn't mean that you can't. Other than that, I want to thank you guys for watching the video. I want to thank the patrons, and I hope you guys do have a wonderful day full of chemistry.